Good evening and welcome into this evening's forum for candidates running for the office of Garfield County Sheriff. I'm Frank Baker, Director of Eagle Marketing, and over the next hour and a half, 2 hours, we'll take this as long as we need to explore the various candidates' candidacy. We'll be asking questions of the candidates as well as getting their both opening and closing statements on this very important race. Just so you'll know, we have the primary coming up June 26th and the runoff will occur in August. We have Republicans on here. You're going like, when do we get to see the Democrats and independents? We don't. There aren't any. So these are the four gentlemen who will be your candidates for Garfield County Sheriff, and we're very anxious and thrilled to have them running for office and also to see what their stands are on the various issues coming up. Let's talk about the people who are responsible for this evening's event. Of course, the Enid News and Eagle and Eagle Marketing, tickled to be a sponsor, as well as PEGASYS, your cable access channel, and Chisholm Trail Broadcasting and Williams Broadcasting. We'll meet representatives of those entities in just a moment. Of course, we've also got to thank our hosts for the evening, the City of Enid. They've been very gracious to offer up the usage of the City Commission chambers tonight. We appreciate Eric Benson, Becky Hodge, and the whole crew at the City of Enid. Now let's meet the candidates very briefly, and gentlemen, we'll come back to you for your opening statements in just a moment, but if we want to swing around to my right, your left, we have first, George Dillman, and then next to him, Sean Jackson. Of course, we'll pan on through our lovely moderator, that's me, and then to my left, we have Jerry Niles, and finally, Rick West. Let's also meet our media panel this evening, and we'll start with the news director for Williams Broadcasting, J. Curtis Huckleberry. And sitting next to him, the executive editor of the Enid News and Eagle, Rob Collins. And next to him, the news director of Chisholm Trail Broadcasting, John Herrick. And finally, next to him, the executive director of PEGASYS, Wendy Quarles, who, and we do this every time we do a forum, she has two very important duties. She's the timekeeper to remind the candidates that perhaps they've explained the issue or the question, they've commented enough, and she's also the bouncer for the event. So if this was a fight weighing at maybe $110, I'm not sure, but Wendy Quarles, your timekeeper and bouncer for our event this evening. Let's now move to the opening statements, and what we're going to do, folks, is we will do kind of a rotation basis. So we'll be starting with George Dillman for the first opening statement, and then when we get around at the end of the evening to the closing statements, George will get to go last. We'll do the same things with the questions. We'll stagger it, so no candidate will always have to go first on answering questions. But first, these will be 3-minute opening statements of each candidate. We will start with candidate for Garfield County Sheriff, George Dillman. George?
Ladies and gentlemen, I've never been more excited as our campaign. We've spent thousands of dollars getting our word out initially to make sure, ladies and gentlemen, that you knew firsthand what we stood for. And you know what? The results are staggering. We have literally thousands of people that have already signed up and said, hey, we're voting for George Dillman for sheriff. And why? Because we've got a great platform. Ladies and gentlemen, this is all about teamwork. We're going to try a very fresh approach that's never been tried here in Garfield County before. Ladies and gentlemen, I had a phone call last night from a couple who said, hey, is this George Dillman for sheriff? And I said, yes, it is. May I ask who's speaking? And so they told me who it was. And I said, you know, I said, may I ask, because they asked for a yard sign. And I said, can I ask if, what prompted you to vote for George Dillman? And they said, well, a couple things. One, you were raised in Enid, Oklahoma, and you graduated from Enid High. It was kind of scary because they knew more about me than almost I knew about myself. They knew that I graduated in '73, that I was a member of the varsity basketball team, and that I was a member of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And then they said something that struck me by surprise. They said, the reason that we want to vote for you is because you're the only candidate with military experience. You grew up here in Enid, which was awesome, but then you left to get a broader experience, and then you came back and you're going to put that to work. And then they asked, I want to know if it's true, if you're really taking a $500 a month cut in pay. And I said, sir, rest assured it is. And they said, well, we've asked several of the other candidates, and they said that it was unconstitutional. And what do you have to say about that? And I said, sir, it's not unconstitutional, and I'm going to do it. Now, I can't force the other elected officials of Garfield County to take a pay cut, but I assure you I will take out an allotment, but there will be a $500 a month cut in pay to go to an agency within Garfield County that works directly with our children in Garfield County. And that's already going to Taylor and Joy Buckminster, who founded Walk for a cure for diabetes, as their child, Kaylee, has type 1 diabetes. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the only candidate here with military experience. I'm the only one with hands-on law enforcement experience in the Middle East. I was hired in the top 1% of all law enforcement to help train, mentor, and equip Iraqi police as an international police liaison officer. I taught self-defense, weapons tactics, and democratic policing principles to the Iraqis. In fact, I saved a man's life over there at gunpoint, saving him from a kidnapping attempt. Ladies and gentlemen, trust me, George Dillman for sheriff. I'm telling you what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. I'm also the only candidate willing to go on board to sign up for a grant funding slot strictly so that all parties within Garfield County can reap the benefits of that. And I think that's really important. And yes, I am willing to take a $500 a month cut in pay. And the other thing that turned them on is that I was the only candidate there for them in 2000 when I kept their property taxes from going up 500%. Ladies and gentlemen, George Dillman for sheriff this June 26th. Thank you very much.
All right, the next opening statement from Sean Jackson. Sean?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for allowing us this opportunity. This has been a very unique situation in which we've got 4 candidates here. Kind of a little bit about me is I grew up in the Enid area, 3rd generation law enforcement with Garfield County Sheriff's Office. I have over 17 years of law enforcement experience, 13 of which are with the Garfield County Sheriff's Office. I started in on the department ground bottom. I'm the only candidate here that started at the bottom and has worked his way up into a position into administration currently as the lieutenant. I thank my department for allowing me to be able to grow professionally and excel in my career development. If it wasn't for that, we would all be lacking. I work in a very outstanding department that provides a lot of services with very limited resources in our county. We have 21 deputies, 19 reserves, and we have 1,065 square miles to cover. Our guys give 110% in our office and sacrifice a lot. Every deputy in our agency has contributed to the success of this department. It has not been a one-man game. Everybody adds a little bit to it. Everybody has left their fingerprint on this department, both past and present. I want to continue to grow with the department and keep advancing the department if elected sheriff. I want to enhance the direction that Sheriff Winchester has basically led us. We function on limited resources with funding and limited personnel. I want to prioritize these resources that we have to better meet the needs of the community. I want to have resolve for victims. To me, property crimes and sexual predator crimes and crimes against persons, those have our high priority. We struggle with a lot of times in trying to maintain manpower to keep that up. But if we take our priorities and put more effort into that, I think we can better solve these crimes. I want to close doors to our drug houses. I don't want to just focus on drugs out on the highways, but I want to focus on closing these doors to in our neighborhoods. I want to ensure that we put a school resource officer back in our schools to better protect our schools. I want to implement a 24/7 patrol, something that we have not done with this county. With the 21 men and women that we have, I think it's obtainable. I want to deter crime and protect our citizens with proactive and targeted patrols, even on dirt roads. I'm Sean Jackson, and I'm asking for your vote and support June 26th for Garfield County Sheriff.
All right, thank you, Sean. Our next opening statement from Jerry Niles. Jerry?
I want to thank the ladies and gentlemen of Enid and also of Garfield County for their attention. Over the last 33 years, I've dedicated my life to law enforcement, a proud profession. The last 14 years, I've been your undersheriff for the Garfield County Sheriff's Department. In that time, working under Sheriff Winchester and with the men and women of our department, we have constantly reduced our crime in the rural areas. Now it's down to less than 7.3 per thousand crimes, 7.3 crimes per thousand population. In the year 1999, it was 18.34 per thousand. We are being proactive, and we're always looking for new ways to serve the public. Over the last 14 years, we have implemented a strict financial program, but along the way, we've also upgraded our technology. We're now an intelligence-led agency, meaning that we are very proactive. We've developed the software, bought the software that interlinks with our dispatch, our jail, and our officers on the streets. over the last 14 years has helped us to share information not only with departments inside the county, but we are also tight networked with 110 agencies throughout the state. We are focused on being proactive not only on our highways and our roads, but also in all our communities, Enid to Hunter to Hillsdale to Hayward. We are there. Just wish you this evening to listen to the answers of all the candidates, and I'm asking for your support and vote on June 26th. Thank you.
And now our final opening statement from candidate Rick West. Rick?
Thank you, Frank. I want to express my gratitude to the sponsors and hosts for tonight's event to allow the candidates to speak and answer questions. My name is Rick West, and I want to be your Garfield County Sheriff. My wife and I, Kathy Stoker, have dedicated our last 32 years of our lives serving the public. She as district attorney, and I as a police officer for the city of Enid. My career started with the Enid Police Department in 1978. I was a patrolman assigned to the Patrol Division or the Traffic Division for 3.5 years. I then was transferred to Patrol Division and worked there 3.5 years, and then in approximately 1985, I was transferred to the Detectives Division. I have 4.5 years of investigative experience. I was the first officer within Garfield County to solicit the use of DNA during a homicide investigation, a rape and a murder of a young woman, which eventually led to the solving of the crime. I learned that from watching 2020, and believe it or not, and it was a new technique that I had discovered, or that I watched from a company that had invented or discovered DNA processing. It was Life Codes out of New York City. Like I say, we were the first in Garfield County to solicit the use for DNA, and like less than a handful in the state to utilize it. I am strongly interested in providing the best investigative techniques and keeping up to date with the scientific aspect of investigations, and I will carry that information or that knowledge to the Sheriff's Department as well. In 1989, I was promoted to the rank of sergeant, and I served in Patrol Division for approximately 6 years. In 1995, I was promoted to the rank of captain and served as commander over all the major divisions within the police department, including communications, special services division, detectives division, patrol division. And then in year 2000, I was blessed with an opportunity to become chief of police. Never did join the police department with the intent of becoming chief of police, never thought it would happen. But I was fortunate enough to be one of the few to have an opportunity to take the test, and then I eventually was promoted. I've handled a budget of over $7.8 million. During the 10 years I was chief, we saved over $5 million in our account fund. As a result, we managed to make several renovations to the police department, as well as animal control shelter and other areas. And I believe that if you do your research on all the candidates, you'll find that I have the most experience and the most knowledge of the job necessary. I thank you, and I look for your support. I appreciate your support and vote on June 26th. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. This is live on PEGASYS Channel 11 as well as KGWA AM 960. We now go to the question portion of the forum, and we'll stagger this. The first question will come from News Director J. Curtis Huckleberry of Williams Broadcasting, and it will first go to Sean Jackson, then we'll come after that to you, Jerry, Rick, and conclude with George. So, Kurt, your question for Sean Jackson.
All right. First, gentlemen, greatly appreciate your time this evening and providing the voters of Garfield County with this information. Let's jump right into it, starting with Lieutenant Jackson. Well, how do you characterize the relationship between the Sheriff's Department and the Enid Police Department? What do you envision that relationship should be, and what, if anything, do you want to do to try and improve or maintain the current rapport?
There's always room for improvement, but I also believe in the maintaining aspect of it. We have a great working relationship, not only with the city of Enid, but every law enforcement agency that surrounds us. We're always working to work together. We network, which that's what helps solve crimes. Today, crimes are globalized, so they're jurisdictional. They go across county borders, they go across state borders, so it's imperative that we work with all the agencies and work together in fighting and deterring crime.
Comments of Sean Jackson. Now, same question for Jerry Niles. Jerry?
I believe our relationship with all our area law enforcement is very good. I personally and some of my deputies attend muster meetings with the Indian Police Department, usually on the night shift. We don't do it every night, but a lot of times. I have contact with the various captains and the chief on numerous occasions. Sheriff. We also share training. Our K-9 units are cross-deputized. So we modified our scheduling for some of their crime investigation techniques, or their missions. So our K-9 units work real well. Our patrol people work real well, and we're hoping to grow that bond with not only Enid PD but the surrounding law enforcement agencies.
And the answer of Rick West. Rick?
The necessity in today's environment as it deals with crime, it's very, very important that agencies work together as closely as they possibly can to utilize the resources of each agency. I feel as though in the past the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department haven't got along as well as they possibly could have, and obviously that will be an approach that I will take on trying to improve the relationships between the two agencies. I will tell you that I've heard complaints from officers in regards to deputies' actions, and I've heard complaints of from deputies in regards to officers' actions. So I think the idea behind any of these candidates, including myself, would be to try to stimulate and improve any type of relationships and avoid or reduce the conflicts and basically set the territorial issues aside. As sheriff, I will do everything I can to promote and prosper a relationship of unity and working together. Thank you.
And finally, the answer of George Dillman. George?
Jay, let me answer this question this way. It's vital because we spent a lot of money, I told you earlier, getting the word out, and people are gravitating to the fact that I do have military experience. I'm the only candidate up here with military experience. And what that does, that brings to the table, ladies and gentlemen, I was selected in the top 1% of all law enforcement to represent our country as an international police liaison officer. I assure you, if I can get along with the Muslim community being an infidel over there, when they knew firsthand that I had their best interest at heart, I will work effortlessly and tirelessly to make sure, ladies and gentlemen, that we share information, that we work harder than ever before to constitute a wonderful working relationship between each other. We have a great department here in the Garfield County Sheriff's Office, and the Enid Police Department is one of the finest in Garfield County, if not certainly the state or the nation. And that's only because they've got trusted leaders and good leadership. And I want to continue that, ladies and gentlemen. Give me an opportunity, and I will bring what I have to the table as a military member and as a CLEAT certified officer. I will bring that to Garfield County, I assure you. Thank you.
Next question from Executive Editor of the News and Eagle, Rob Collins. First to Jerry Niles. Rob?
Thank you. One candidate recently announced an endorsement from the Enid Fraternal Order of Police Lodge, and campaign signs are placed on high-profile private property throughout the city. What specific endorsements would you like to disclose?
Thank you, Rob. I did receive the endorsement from the Enid Garfield County Fraternal Order of Police. I was notified last Thursday night of that endorsement, and it's a humble honor to be endorsed by the men and the women of the Enid Police Department. I feel that working with all our law enforcement agencies, both day and night, I think they're aware that I'm accessible. Most of them have my cell phone number. Doesn't matter what time, day or night, I'm available, not only for my guys, for any other law enforcement agency out there.
Same question for Rick West. Rick?
As far as disclosure of those that are supporting me, I will tell you, I'm not going to go into specifics, but I'd be glad to tell you that I have received the support of educators, bankers, lawyers, blue-collar workers as well throughout the community. I think soon will determine, or you'll be able to determine that I was very, very successful in my fundraising through the support of these individuals. My support isn't isolated to a certain area of the community. It's broad and it's widespread, from the lonely housewife who is on a fixed income to the more influential people in town. And the reason for me wanting to discuss this is that based upon that type of support, I'll have the ability to make necessary change and tough changes and decisions regarding the operations of the Sheriff's Department. And I have the experience to be able to solicit the support from the individuals who are supporting me now. So I think I can make you a very, very good sheriff if given the opportunity.
Same question for George Dillman.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've been very blessed. I had a humbling experience over in Iraq, and I keep turning to that because that's extremely important. Dr. Aham al-Samurai, the man whose life I saved during a kidnapping attempt, I saved his life, and my security team saved his life once as well. He flew in from Chicago. Now, this is a man that was appointed by President Bush to help write the Iraqi Constitution. He flew in. I was very humbled. He flew in on his own accord to endorse my candidacy for sheriff early in February. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that speaks volumes in itself. This gentleman is a Muslim of Muslim faith, but he recognizes my true blue patriotic attitude, and he appreciates me for who I am. And the folks all across this great county of ours are recognizing it too more and more, and they've come out in groves, ladies and gentlemen, and I just don't feel that announcing any names would be beneficial, but I can tell you this, the word is catching on because they like the idea that I'm the only candidate willing to take a $500 a month cut in pay. Thank you very much.
And finally, Sean Jackson. Sean?
Well, when we're talking about endorsements, the greatest endorsement I have is my wife and my family. They're the true ones that are really there no matter what. It's not the Fraternal Order of Police. It's not a one specific group. It's community. I have a lot of support from the community. I have a lot of support from law enforcement officers, various businessmen from all over. They support me because, one, I stand for the Constitution. I have a plan with what I want to do with the office and the direction I want to go with the department to better serve, to prioritize the needs that we have to better serve the needs of the community. That's why I'm supported.
And the next question comes from John Herrick, News Director of Chisholm Trail Broadcast, and and first directed to Rick West. John?
I've been hearing a lot of concerns from people around the state about how the prison population has become so overcrowded. How do you deal with an increasing jail population with the current resources that you have?
The Sheriff's Department has a difficult situation. All Sheriff's Departments in the state have currently have a difficult situation. I read in one of the news articles this morning that there are approximately 1,550 or so inmates awaiting transportation to the Department of Corrections. The difficulty that our Sheriff's Department has is that they have to utilize the money paid by the Department of Corrections in order to fund the maintenance operations of the detention facilities. So they basically are in a catch-22. It's necessary that we look at obtaining a steady and constant, a reliable funding source so we can alleviate the need to rely upon M&O so that we can look at getting those prisoners out of the jail as quickly as possible. Now, I'm not certain as to how quickly that can occur based upon the article I read. There are limited beds available for the Department of Corrections inmates, but alleviating the need for money for maintenance and operations is an important aspect.
Next response from George Dillman. George?
Ladies and gentlemen, back in the year 2000, I'm the only candidate that provided the leadership necessary to put the train back on track when I called for a feasibility study of our entire criminal justice system. What happened is NIC, or National Institute of Corrections on the Jails Division side, would come in and conduct a $60,000 study provided by grant money, free. It didn't cost us taxpayers one penny. And ladies and gentlemen, that was a scientific study that Sheriff Winchester endorsed. I pitched the proposal to him, and as a Christian, he did what was good for Garfield County. Ladies and gentlemen, they requested that we build a 400-unit facility. Instead, we had to compromise with the city. It came out to a 198-bed facility. Initially, they wanted to pay for property taxes, which I was vehemently opposed along with Wade Patterson. But ladies and gentlemen, here's the thing. I would invoke the 100% rule at 80%, and I would turn away any inmates that the state of Oklahoma, for those that we could as your sheriff, I would certainly do that. Administratively, I would look after that as my top #1 source of turning back, not to be overcrowded, because, ladies and gentlemen, there is a backlash here. There's about 1,500 inmates waiting to go into the DOC. Thank you.
And same question for Sean Jackson.
When it comes to jail overcrowding issues, one thing that you'll notice is it's not a Garfield County problem. It's a state problem, it's a nation problem, and it's something that we're going to be facing for a long time to come. We do the best to work within what means that we do have. Currently, we work with our justice system in trying to speed up the judicial process, to try to get people out. We are focusing on doing ankle monitoring systems so we can start reducing that population by putting low threat to low risk offenders back out with strict accountability. One of the problems our county faces is we have a 4 to 5 time recidivism rate, and we need to come up with programs, especially in our jail, that may be able to address that type of scenario, because most everything is substance abuse driven. So whether we're able to come up with a substance abuse program that can start targeting those issues, if I'm able to reach 4 or 5, then I have, in essence, reduced some of the overcrowding issue, and we're putting people back out on the street to live normal lives.
And the final answer from Jerry Niles. Jerry?
Yes, it is true. Statewide, we have an overcrowding issue. It's something that is mandated, or we have some say, but not a whole lot of say in. Currently, our bed space is 198, but to meet state standard, we actually have about 224 beds. The difference between 198 and those 224 is called portable beds. We don't like to have those. DOC will send, anytime we have over 200 inmates, we send a letter to DOC. They send us a list of who they want brought down at that time based upon the type of crime and where they can put them into bed space. Again, all the county jails have this problem, and all of them use that money to help benefit running the operation of the jail. I've talked with Judge Laddick, Sheriff Winchester, and myself, and we have set up some programs, one of them being the ankle monitoring. We're also talking with the Narcotics Anonymous group, and with drug court with Judge Michael, we're working on in-cell counseling programs right now to try and address some of these issues of repeat offenders and low-risk offenders also.
It's the Garfield County Sheriff's Candidates Forum on PEGASYS Channel 11 and KGWA AM 960, building up to the primary on June 26, and unless one candidate wins 50% plus one, probably a runoff featuring the top 2 coming in August. Next question comes from Williams Broadcasting News Director J. Curtis Huckleberry and goes first to George Dillman. Kurt?
All right, gentlemen, a bit of a follow-up. A couple of you addressed specifically this issue in your last response, but what is your impression and opinion of the current drug court? Would you like to see it expanded, and potentially what other types of alternative sentencings that could alleviate some of the population problem?
Jay, that's a really good question, and it's going to require a mindset that can't be just initiated from one perspective. This is going to take a group effort. It's been mentioned here, they've got the ankle monitoring device they're working on. That's why I was so adamant about having feasibility study conducted in 2000, because they did a criminal justice study, or a scientific study of our entire criminal justice system back in 2000, and they came up with some particularly noteworthy situations on how to streamline the duties here of the court system, and how, depending on the mandates set forth by criteria of sentencing. And I think drug court is an absolutely essential. Sean Jackson is 100% right. We have to take a look at other people. When they start losing hope, and a lot of them do have drug problems, and they're repeat offenders over and over again, we need to do something that comes along that line. That's why I'm the only candidate that calls for a skills writing, a grant writer that I want to use in my administration to help explore and exploit private funding, state funding, and federal funding to help these people that are in dire straits, to keep them from repeat offending, getting them some counseling. And I can do that, ladies and gentlemen, if you elect me for your Garfield County Sheriff. Thank you.
The comments of Sean Jackson. Sean?
Drug court is important. It's not anything that we would ever want to do away with. It has great impact on a lot of lives and has really made a great difference in some substance abuse problems that people have had. So it's a very important deal, and it keeps them from being in our jail all the time. You know, the one thing we don't want to have is an indebtor's prison. You know, we can develop a slippery slope. I mean, we can put people in jail, but then it compounds another problem. So drug court is somewhat of an answer for that problem. Actions for if they're having those issues of violations and stuff, you know, now that we're pursuing into the ankle monitoring, that's an opportunity to start providing stricter accountability of those individuals before putting them into our jail, compounding that same problem. But drug court isn't anything that we would ever want to take a step back and do away with. You know, we don't want to give up what ground we have taken.
Same question for Jerry Niles.
Over the last several years, the sheriff and myself have also signed off on support letters with the drug court. Drug court's funded through grants and through some Supreme Court monies. Some of those monies are drying up. In the last year, members of the drug court team have gone to Billings, Montana, looked at the program up there. We have members going to another place somewhere else. Judy Helberg with the drug court staff has come over and talked to the sheriff about sanction beds, and that's where we brought on board, instead of those people that are violating conditions had to be put back in jail, we've allowed for their counselors to come and visit them in jail so we can continue these programs. Our ankle monitoring program right now is just GPS, but there is the setup for alcohol and substance abuse where it detects it through the sweat. So if anyone violates those while they're on an ankle monitoring system, it's reported back to us for a violation.
And finally, Rick West. Rick?
Jay, the question regarding the expansion of the drug court, I think the drug court is essential to maintaining and reducing the number of people being incarcerated within Garfield County. What I mean by that is that it's essential that we utilize or even expand the use of the drug court system as a means to reduce the crime within Garfield County. Ankle monitoring obviously is a new approach for the Garfield County Sheriff's Department in trying to reduce the actual number of inmates within the facility. Community sentencing or community service is an aspect, but there's no one simple answer. Every community in the state and in the nation is faced with these same problems. We incarcerate the most women of any state in the nation, and we're very, very high on the list in regards to men as well. There's no easy answer, but it's going to require an innovative and cooperative approach dealing with the judicial system, the executive system as well, working together and trying to minimize the problems associated with the overcrowding issue.
Next question comes from Rob Collins in the Enid News and Eagle and goes first to Sean Jackson. Rob?
Thank you. Without a mental health detention facility in Garfield County, local law enforcement officers end up transporting adult patients for lengthy drives to Fort Supply, Oklahoma City, and beyond. What would you recommend to improve the situation?
Well, that's kind of a tough situation to improve unless we want to develop a mental health facility, detention here in our county. We have to get people to treatment. That's just part of, the services that we provide. Whether that's transporting them, then we have to do that. But, we're required to get them those services. When we encounter them, there's not much you can do about the transport aspect of it. You can look at ways to work with other agencies on your transporting, which is something that we have done with not necessarily mental health, but we have programs that where if we need to transport inmates to and from on different routes, we work with other agencies and we develop systems to where we're able to pick up other departments' inmates and to where they can come here and vice versa. They can cut our distance in half. But as for transporting and mental health, that's just one of the jobs that we have to do.
Okay, next answer from Jerry Niles.
A lot of it has to boil down to funding. 1988, there was over 6,000 beds available for mental health in the state of Oklahoma at one point. We had housing inside the city limits of Enid. Since that time, the State Department of Health, the Mental Health Division, has seen the money go, just be cut away at the legislative issue because of budgets and things of that nature. Right now, currently, there's only about 133 beds that are available in the state of Oklahoma. So it's, for us, on our side, it's just the transport issue, as it is with every other law enforcement agency, because basically the policy is whoever catches them transports them. I hate to say it that way, but that's the reality. So, if we have to go to Muskogee or a night trip to Veneta or Oklahoma City, that's not uncommon now. What we need to do as a Sheriff's Association, what you do, every citizen needs to do, is let your legislators know that money needs to be back into this, so we can address these mental health issues where they need to be, not at a county level, but at a state level. That's the responsibility of the state.
And next, Rick West.
If you have an opportunity to speak with any mental health practitioner, you'll find out that our drug problem is directly associated with our mental health problem. Brings me back to the issue related to drug court. Very, very important aspect, because it doesn't just influence the aspect of overcrowding in our jails, but also directly influences the needs of the people that are likely to need mental health help. The transportation issue is a serious issue in regards to the fact that funding from the state is limiting the number of bed spaces within the state, and therefore law enforcement agencies who pick up individuals in need of mental health assistance or treatment have to drive longer distances in order to receive the assistance. I would agree with the comments made by the other candidates in that it's our responsibility as citizens to approach our legislators to see that funding is available to deal with this problem, because it's just not our Enid, Garfield County issue, it's a state issue.
And finally, George Dillman.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think approaching any problem is approachable under a team approach, and that's what I bring to the community. I'm on the Garfield County Suicide Prevention Task Force, and we're trying very hard to destigmatize mental health issues, because I believe, being in a combat zone myself, I've seen firsthand what post-traumatic stress syndrome does to a person. And ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you this, it's going to take a team approach to fix, to correct this problem, because people with mental health issues, the funding is getting cut back. But under my administration, that's one thing I want to do. Under the grant writing position, I'm confident that we can find some funding that would help at least alleviate some of the painful measures that we have to take in transporting these people to Fort Supply. And I thank you for your time.
Our next question comes from News Director from Chisholm Trail Broadcasting, John Herrick, and is directed first to Jerry Niles. John?
Well, open carry of firearms is soon going to be the law in Oklahoma, and so I just want to know from all of you, what is your position on the rights of the citizens of Oklahoma to own and carry firearms, and do you believe more or less laws governing the use of firearms would be appropriate?
Open carry of the Self-Defense Act is law. It will be going to effect November 1. I support it, but also I've talked with other law enforcement people. There are some concerns, but it's the same concerns as we have as law enforcement officers. Weapon retention is the big question. As law enforcement officers, we're trained on weapon retention and the type of holsters we could carry. I think that's probably going to be the discussion for the next several months until November 1. The other part of that would probably be constitutional carry, and I'm not really up to speed on constitutional carry at this point. So I would say I need to study that part of the question even more.
Same question for Rick West.
The issue of open carry, first of all, I'd like to explain that the members here, the candidates here before you are members of the executive branch of government, not the legislative. So we really don't have an opportunity to be able to make the laws ourselves. We just get the opportunity to enforce them. As such, I tell you the truth, I've got to commend our legislators for taking a proactive approach on protecting our Second Amendment rights for personal gun ownership. You know, our Second Amendment wasn't written for our hunters or our sportsmen. It was written for the basic defense of our country, and that includes self-defense of particular individuals. As far as eliminating or expanding laws, again, I want to say that that's the responsibility of the legislators, and in regards to whether or not open carry is a good idea. I was, when they initially passed the concealed carry law allowing individuals in Oklahoma to carry concealed weapons, as a law enforcement officer, I did have concerns. But I understand the reasoning behind open carry issues. And based upon the experience I've seen from the citizens that have been or have chosen to carry a concealed weapon, I really don't have many concerns on open carry. I believe it requires education of the citizens who choose to carry the weapon. Obviously, everyone can come up with an idea, and my time's up, and I thank you.
And the comments of George Dillman.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've seen firsthand in a combat zone what open carry can do. Now, I understand what the legislator's trying to do, and I applaud their efforts, because what brought that up was the fact that people during the wintertime, you can conceal a weapon. Not really an issue. The problem comes in during the summertime. You have less clothes on, maybe you're wearing a t-shirt, and all of a sudden the wind catches your shirt and it exposes your weapon. Then you're in violation of the law, and that's what they sent out to correct, ladies and gentlemen. Now, here's the thing. When we debated at the Sons and Daughters of Liberty, they asked about constitutional carry, and I said I was not for that. And here's the reason why. I had a very good friend that was a one-star general on the Iraqi police department. He was killed after he kissed his parents goodbye on their bus trip to Fallujah. He came out, and a young 16-year-old boy had an AK-47 and put 3 rounds of 7.62 right dead center. He was dead before he hit the ground. Sean Jackson made the statement that he's not concerned about the weapon that you see, he's concerned about the weapon you can't see. But ladies and gentlemen, constitutional carry, the very interpretation of that is to carry a firearm concealed without a permit. That's what constitutional carry means. And ladies and gentlemen, I want you to be trained. Sean Jackson is a firm believer in training also, but he put a caveat on it. Ladies and gentlemen, look at the totality for what I stand for. Don't take just that one area, but I assure you that I've seen both sides of the issue. Thank you very much.
And finally, Sean Jackson. Sean?
Well, he's right. I am a supporter of our Constitution, and I'm also a big, huge supporter of your Second Amendment right, the right to bear arms. I believe in every citizen's right to defend themselves against attacks. When it comes to the carrying of a weapon, if that's what individuals want to use for their self-defense, then it's their right and liberty. I am a big, huge proponent of training. I know as law enforcement officers, we go through an extensive amount of training. And those are the only concerns that ever come into my mind when we're talking about, you know, just people carrying weapons is the training aspect. As for open carry, you know, George talked briefly about the not being able to see a weapon. If, you know, to me that is a dangerous situation. The weapon that I don't see most generally is, you know, from a law enforcement standpoint, the one that will kill you. When I'm walking up to a traffic stop, most generally we may not see that weapon, and it can, you know, wreak harm on you real fast. You know, we have these laws, and they're set in place most generally to keep honest people honest and law-abiding. If somebody is strict on wanting to wreak harm, then they're going to. So knowing that we have people out there that are able to defend themselves is paramount. You know, each pull of a trigger, you know, if we responded to an active shooter, out of time.
And we'll do one more question before we conclude the first round of questioning in our forum. We'll take a short break after this next question. And it comes from Williams Broadcasting News Director J. Curtis Huckleberry, and is first directed to Rick West. Kurt?
All right, gentlemen, speaking about another issue that occupies some of the departments, the office's time and personnel, Who should be serving court papers? Currently, it is the responsibility, I do believe, of the Sheriff's Department. County-paid uniformed deputies, or would it be the type of thing that you would consider outsourcing to privately paid processors if that was allowed?
Jay Curtis, in regards to your question, I have learned, based upon the conversations I've had with the other candidates, all three of which either have been or are current deputies or within the Sheriff's Department, that the revenues generated from the service of papers is a necessity or an aspect of in regards to the funding the operations of the Sheriff's Department. The Sheriff's Department is a very, very lean operating organization, and they utilize or need every aspect of funding they possibly can. So I don't believe, based upon what I have heard and learned, that it would be feasible to utilize a contractual situation and pay people to do what they're currently doing when they're needing the funding.
Okay. Same question for George Dillman.
Well, just so you know, there are process servers out there that aren't related to law enforcement. So they do that. They do have a means to make an income, and they do it very well. But the Garfield County Sheriff's Office can't afford to lose. I agree totally with Mr. West. We can't afford to lose one penny. And if we can do it as effective a job as the civilian side of the house serving papers, and that's what we need to do. And I think with our team of experts, they do it very well. And they do it with honesty, they do it with integrity, they do it with a genuineness of approach that takes some of the sting off of it. I know when I used to serve papers, and I've done it before, and I think Jerry and Sean have done it equally as well, that sometimes you have to sit down and discuss those items with the people that you're serving because they're under a lot of stress. And so it certainly depends. You never want to strip somebody of dignity at any time. I think that we're right on when we say that we definitely want to maintain that as an income level for the Garfield County Sheriff's Office. Thank you.
And the comments of Sean Jackson. Excuse me.
You know, paper service and service fees, I mean, that can be somewhat of our bread and butter for the Sheriff's Office. You know, when we deal with limited funding coming out of County General, you know, we generate, you know, in somewhere in excess of $600,000 annually, you know, out of our service fees. You know, we use that funding to help, you know, purchase patrol cars and, you know, and to fund some of the positions that we have. So outsourcing of our papers and services of that such, you know, would not be an option under my administration.
And finally, Jerry Niles.
When you say papers, the Sheriff's Office and the courts process probably about 26 different types of processed paperwork. Some of those, since we are a constitutional office, we are required to serve those. Others are allowed for private process serving. Statutorily, Sheriff's Office and court clerks have to charge $55 for paper service. Private process servers charge a little bit less. So it's a happy medium. Currently, it's about $70,000 a month that we generate off of papers, and it's a lot. Some of it's court ordered, where a peace officer has to serve those. The funding comes in is not only does it buy cars, but it buys things like gasoline, tires. Your property taxes pay for our salaries and benefits. The Sheriff's Office, everything else in the Sheriff's Office is generated off of service fee funds, grants, any of those type resources. So I think we've done a very good job of managing money for for the last 14 years, especially. We've seen an increase in staff, all due to helping with our performance. We're customer based, we're serving the public, we're trying to make everyone happy.
It's the Garfield County Sheriff Candidates Forum. You're listening to it on KHWA AM 960, viewing it on PEGASYS Channel 11. I'm Frank Baker, Director of Eagle Marketing, the moderator. We're going to take a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll be back with round 2 and the shattering climax of our Candidates Forum. Back in 5. Welcome back into the second half of our Garfield County Sheriff's Candidates Forum. I'm Frank Baker, Director of Eagle Marketing. We're very grateful for the City of Enid hosting us tonight in the City of Enid Commission Chambers. I want to thank our major sponsors for this event, PEGASYS, Channel 11, your cable access station here in Enid, as well as the Enid News and Eagle Marketing, Williams Broadcasting, and Chisholm Trail Broadcasting. And by the way, if you want to view this again, because I know sometimes there's a lot of wisdom that's been shared this evening, you may have to kind of marinate and go back through some of those questions. This will be aired on PEGASYS Channel 12 numerous times, June 14th at 1 p.m., the 16th at 5 p.m., June 17th at 7 p.m., and June 18th at 7 p.m. on through and up until the election, which is scheduled for June 26th. Also, this will be made available to enidnews.com, and we'll have a link to be able to share this forum with you in the next day or so, and you'll be able to go back and cover it in that manner and watch it at your leisure. We return to questions of the candidates for Garfield County Sheriff, George Dillman, Sean Jackson, Jerry Niles, and Rick West. As we resume questioning, we go to the executive editor of the Enid News and Eagle, Rob Collins, and he'll be coming to George Dillman with this question.
If you win the election, what specifics can you tell us about your pick to serve as your undersheriff?
Ladies and gentlemen, my undersheriff will be done within the department, and I may look outside the department as well for the undersheriff, but there will be an interview process, and I think that's really important because I want somebody with my same ideology, the same one that's willing to spend a little extra time or a lot of extra time. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, it's so important because, for example, the town of Hunter needs a new tornado siren. They want an extra tornado siren, so to prevent really the elderly from playing hostage in that area under those extreme conditions that a tornado often brings. Ladies and gentlemen, I want that person to be able to help write letters right along with me, just like I did to Representative DeWitt, along with CCing a copy to Senator Patrick Anderson and Representative Mike Jackson and John Ian. I think it's just really important that they have the same, they're singing off the same sheet of music with me, and I think that's very important. I want them to know that we're here to serve and protect the people of Garfield County, and I want them to have the same attitude that I do, that they mirrors my ideology. So what I will do is I will spend time advertising and see exactly what, should I win this election with a 51% of the vote? Give me a strong mandate, ladies and gentlemen, and I will go after that second in command, I assure you. Thank you.
Same question for Sean Jackson.
My plan, first of all, is to always evaluate from within. We're in a department that, there is very little room for advancement. In order to maintain the best out of your people and to give them hope and future, they have to have a sense of being able to advance and grow developmentally like I have. I'm looking for a strong knowledge base in law enforcement along with experience. But more so, I'm looking for quality leadership ability. Leadership ability that can go back and repair any form of morale damage that we may have sustained in the past. Those are the issues that I'm looking to correct. I want to fix morale issue. I want these individuals to be able to better serve the community. And when they're broken down by morale issues or micromanagement, then you're going to get less service to the community. So I want to repair those types of issues. So I'm looking for an individual with those qualities.
The comments of Jerry Niles.
Probably continue on the same line as previous speakers. We have a group of men and women that work for our department. We're going to look within. We're also going to look for opportunities without. A undersheriff not necessarily needs to be a yes man, but needs to be an educated person that has strong motivation, is able to lead others in the absence of the sheriff. It's someone that knows the ins and outs of not only the sheriff's department, but can work well with others. Because as second command, he's more than likely is going to be directed to perform those functions. So I'm looking for someone that's be able to work as a team and not necessarily be a team leader, but be a team player.
And finally, Rick West.
I have taken the opportunity to speak with my original first administrative assistant with the Enid Police Department. His name is Tim Goodpasture. Captain Goodpasture retired shortly after I was promoted to chief, but I did have an opportunity to work with Tim for about a year or so. Tim has vast knowledge in investigative practices. He was a sergeant with the juvenile division and detective division. He has also vast experience in regards to the operations and management of a large facility or a large department like the police department. He got me through my first year as chief of police, and he did so very successfully. I have talked to him, and I think he would consider being my undersheriff. So simply stated, to answer your question, Tim Goodpasture would be my choice as undersheriff.
Thank you, Rick. Next question from Chisholm Trail Broadcasting News Director John Herrick, directed first to Sean Jackson.
Regarding the cost of jail operations, are you going to ask voters to re-up the sales tax when the sales tax runs out?
For me, a sales tax is last resort. I mean, we're inundated with taxes as a city, as a nation, as a country. You know, to me, I want to look for solutions to fix the problems before we ever have to approach that. And I think we're a little ways away from ever having to consider that. But I think that we need to consider options in reducing our jail overcrowding issues by, first of all, what we were doing now, you know, looking at our ankle monitoring system to help lower that cost. You know, substance abuse treatment programs to help reduce some of that jail overcrowding issues. So before we start talking about a tax, let's see what we can get done first before we ever have to approach that.
And next, Jerry Niles.
Tax is a bad word in a lot of people's minds, but also as far as with county elected officers, when you say jail, they say a big sucking noise in their budget, because the county budget is funded off of a process that came into being with statehood, 1907. Our ad valorem taxes, in fact, fund our county government. They also fund your school districts. Sales taxes, while it needs to be looked at, I'm not going to say sales tax is completely out, because it's not. There is a good possibility that we're going to have a maintenance and operation tax. We're the only county jail in the whole state that's not operated or funded with a sales tax. Out of all the new jails that have been built over the last 10 to 15 years, we are the only one that's not has a maintenance and operation funded by a sales tax.
An answer of Rick West. Rick?
The need for a continuation of the sales tax in order to operate the jail facility is a necessity. It's a need of the Garfield County Sheriff's Department. The sales tax that currently is used to service the debt on the bonds that built the facility expire at the end of 2017. This sheriff, when he's selected, is the sheriff that's going to have to deal with that problem. I have learned that approximately, or a large sum of money from that service debt, after the service debt is paid off, that money is forwarded to the sheriff or to the detention facility for operations. So when that tax expires, I've talked with the accountant who oversees the detention facility operations, and he's told me that he's been instructed to have at least a year's worth of funding in reserve to be able to deal with the need to deal with this sales tax issue. So the answer to your question, regardless of whether or not you like it, is the fact that, yes, there's going to be a need to re-up that sales tax in order for that detention facility to be maintained and operated properly.
And finally, George Dillman.
You know, it's an unfortunate thing. Nobody likes to speak about taxes, but your next Garfield County Sheriff is going to have to be one of us that makes that hard decision, or at least points the voters in that direction. Ladies and gentlemen, under my tutelage, in the beginning, I called for a feasibility study of our entire criminal justice system back in 2000. And why is that so paramount now? Because the folks initially wanted to pay for the jail via property tax or ad valorem taxes. I'm the only candidate up here that kept your property tax from going up 500%. And I want you to remember that when you go to the polls. That's why it's so important. And they talk about this tax. It's a 3/8 cent sales tax that will be done in the year 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, keep this in mind. A good sign of a society, one of the measuring sticks that they use is how well they treat their prisoners. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to need operational and maintenance funding. And I'm going to ask that the 3/8 cent sales tax continue It's an unfortunate thing, but that's what I'm going to ask for. So I'm telling you up front, I'm not beating around the bush. I'm letting you know that we're going to continue under my tutelage, the 3/8% sales tax. If I have anything to say with that, that's going to be my input, and I thank you for that.
It's the Garfield County Sheriff's Candidates Forum on both Channel 11 Pegasus and KHWA AM 960. Next question from Williams Broadcasting News Director Kurt Huckleberry, first to Jerry Niles.
All right, gentlemen, as sheriff, what would be your philosophy and approach for the department's patrol of the rural areas, since the vast majority of our smaller towns included don't have any type of independent law enforcement?
My philosophy is going to be expanded on what we're already doing. We've revamped our scheduling as of starting next month. We've hired 2 new officers that will be going through training. We're working on revamping the schedules to cover for more coverage. We're also working with the other smaller departments with them on a daily basis almost to assist them with disturbance calls or any type of calls where they need assistance. The OSBI Crime in Oklahoma report, the last decade from 2000 to 2010, I'll recite it again. Garfield County rural areas, we decreased our crime. We didn't, it wasn't by accident, it was by design. Commitment by the men and women of our department to be out there patrolling both day and night. Crime reduction. We've put emphasis on training. We've put emphasis on equipment. We've put emphasis on customer service. We are here to serve and protect, and that's what we're going to continue to do, even more so.
Same question for Rick West.
I've had an opportunity to speak with a large group of people throughout the community. So I've walked door to door on nearly all the communities east of 81 Highway and intend to do so on the west side of 81. But one of the, just basically my philosophy as sheriff would be to focus on providing the very best professional patrol and investigative techniques within the county, and that would require the deputies to spend substantial time out within the county, meeting the county people. I have no issue or qualms in regards to providing law enforcement for the small municipalities within the county that don't have law enforcement currently. There is a very definite need. I would like the deputies to be work towards a community policing aspect as opposed to just patrolling. I think it's necessary in order for these deputies or the department to build trust and confidence in the citizens, is that they get out and meet the individuals and learn what they need and provide the services necessary to build that trust and confidence.
And the answer of George Dillman.
As your Garfield County Sheriff, one of my main goals is to implement a grant writing position. I want to make sure that we have a grant writing position in there so that one of my long-term goals is to initiate a school resource officer in every rural school setting. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what will that do? That will absolutely provide dividends beyond belief, because those folks, men or women, designed as a school resource officer will effectively deal with the crime within the school setting in a mentoring partnership way that will alleviate other deputies to have 24-hour coverage in the rural area. And I think that's really what you're yearning for, because out on the campaign trail, that's what I've heard time and time again, because they don't feel that they have the 24-hour coverage that they deserve. The folks in Hayward deserve the same type of law enforcement that those in Carrier, those at Hillsdale, those in Kremlin or Enid get. And they work very hard. The Garfield County Sheriff's Office does work very hard, but there is room for improvement. And under my leadership, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the only candidate telling you how I'm going to do it and how I'm going to pay for it. Ladies and gentlemen, we can do this. Thank you very much.
And finally, Sean Jackson.
Our proactive patrols are paramount. Being able to get out into the community, it's not about strictly being out on the highway, it is getting back in the dirt roads. That is where a lot of our crime does take place.
Sure.
We are very proactive in our investigative aspect and trying to get out there and work crimes and stuff, but it's not about just working crimes, it's also about being able to deter crime. In order to deter crime, you have to be out in rural area. You have to be where the bad guy thinks that we're not. We have to be out there 24/7. And that's something that in the last 13 years that I've been with the Sheriff's Office, we haven't had a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week patrol. Out of 21 men and women in this department, it is doable. We can establish a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week patrol. And by doing that, that is going to be able to get them off the main roads, get them out there to the rural community to better serve them.
This question will come from the Enid News and Eagle's Rob Collins and will be directed first to Rick West. Rob?
Freedom of Information Oklahoma is a statewide organization that actively supports those organizations that individuals that are working to open records or to provide access to meetings that are illegally closed. FOI is encouraging candidates to sign an open government pledge. Would you sign this oath of transparency, and why or why not?
As a matter of fact, transparency of government, I believe, is a governmental responsibility to the citizens, and that's one of the issues that I am running my candidacy on, is transparency of government. I believe that it's the responsibility of every government agency to be as open as and forthright with the community that they serve as possible. You need to understand that the Sheriff's Department or any government agency belongs to the people. It doesn't belong to the sheriff, or it doesn't belong to the politicians that's been elected to that position. And we have a responsibility and a duty to be as open and upfront. Now, obviously, when you have issues of security that wouldn't allow you to provide information such as, I know that tactical information or TAC team information related to the operations of a special weapons team, it wouldn't be something that you would want to release to the general public because it has to do with the safety of the individual officers. But I have no qualms of signing a transparency agreement as long as my wife, the attorney, has an opportunity before I sign it.
Same question for George Dillman.
Rick,
George?
that was a fabulous answer. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I had the opportunity to serve in Iraq. I told you before, I was selected in the top 1% of this country to represent our nation as an international police liaison officer responsible for training, mentoring, and equipping Iraqi police. I taught self-defense, weapons tactics, and democratic policing principles. One of my charter goals when I got to Iraq was to ensure that no fraud, waste, and abuse practices took place. That meant the Iraqis had to learn transparency of government. Ladies and gentlemen, I was fortunate enough after 3 months, I realized that they were using ghost employees, making millions of dollars at the hands of U.S. taxpayers. I sent that up, I wrote it up. As a direct result of that, they went all the way up to President Bush in the Oval Office. Ladies and gentlemen, I observed, I documented, and I put forth the necessary paperwork to effect the arrest of high-ranking Iraqi police officers. They realized for a year in, maybe fraud, waste, and abuse totaled over $1 million, $1,080,000, and it could have gone as high as $30 million across Iraq. Ladies and gentlemen, I assure you I'm all about transparency of government, and I will look after your taxpayer dollar, I promise you. Thank you.
Next response from Sean Jackson.
I'm 100% for the open government pledge. I believe currently our office is transparent. We are accountable to the citizens. And under my administration, I would encourage anybody to be able to come in and see what's going on. You know, I feel that we owe that to our citizens. You know, as a government agency, we owe that to our citizens. So 100%, yes.
And finally, Jerry Niles.
Yes, to the pledge. I have a binder that has both the Open Records and the Open Meetings Act in my desk. I've had it there for 14 years. We as a government agency are employees. We're employees of the community, and it's our obligation to follow the law. Pure and simple. Yes, I'd sign a pledge.
This next question comes from Chisholm Trail Broadcasting News Director John Herrick, directed first towards George Dillman.
That's fitting, because George, you said earlier that part of how society is how they treat their prisoners. I kind of want to address how you treat your jail employees. It's a big issue. What are your thoughts on the use of temp workers and how many should be utilized?
You know, these are tough times, And temp workers, I don't have a problem with that. TPI provides an invaluable service to Garfield County, and we shouldn't look that gift horse in the mouth whatsoever. Now, what that does, the problem, there are 5 functions of management. There's planning, organizing, directing, controlling, and coordinating. And out of the most important one of those is coordinating, excuse me. And I believe that you do have to have some flexibility, but continuity is what really builds a strong management team. And you want to take those people that are coming in from TPI, and you want to make them foster a team atmosphere. And I'm not going to tell you how many folks that we need, because I believe that could be a security issue. But I will tell you this, that I will look I want them to have the same pledge, the same work ethic. I want them to know, I used to tell the deputies when I worked at Garfield County, don't you dare act holier than thou. It's by the grace of God you're not on the other side of those bars, and don't ever forget it. Ladies and gentlemen, once you start stripping somebody of their dignity, then you've gone the wrong way. Thank you.
Up next, Sean Jackson.
Temporary personnel agencies are very beneficial at this time. Currently, we're in a time that we go through a lot of various employees. I mean, we're in an oil boom. We're losing people right and left, especially out of our jail facility. You know, that helps offset that a lot of times. At the same time, we lose a lot of people as soon as they walk into a facility like that and they hear the slamming door behind them and realize, this is not the job for me. They take some of that process of being able to filter some of the candidates for us and to carry them until they've been able to establish and meet a probationary period within our department. That prevents us from being able to hire them face value right off the bat, them decide that this isn't what they're wanting to do, or come across some issues that they're really not working out in the facility, and sending our unemployment rate and unemployment pay, with the department through the roof. So they're very beneficial.
And the answer of Jerry Niles.
Using of temporary personnel alleviates us from those additional costs by contracting with them for an hourly rate. We don't have to pay monthly benefit packages at that point. The persons who are hired or brought in are given a 30 or 60-day probationary period, whether to see if they are able to work in that environment or if they're not. And it also allows us to be able to evaluate those people, see if we want to put them on full-time at the end of the probationary period. So it's a management issue, and it also deals with budgetary issues too. On average, it's 5 to 8 employees per month. Again, budget considerations right now, the job market is out there. A lot of people leaving for the oil field, or with the ongoing wind turbine farms coming in. We have a lot of construction jobs out there, so a lot of benefits for people with higher paying jobs.
Final response from Rick West.
I personally understand the need of the Sheriff's Department to utilize temporary personnel services to fill vacancies, and I also understand the problem associated with better paying jobs, pulling employees from your job market. I personally am not in favor of utilizing temporary personnel without a very, very strict application and review process of the employee. And that primarily has to do with a lot of the communications I've had with particular people within the community who either have had relatives working within the facility or those that have been incarcerated within the facility. I believe that it goes back to a need of funding, and I think they're utilizing temporary personnel currently because of the lack of funding to operate the facility. And I believe if we fix the issue of funding, we also fix the issue regarding the use of that type of personnel service.
Now coming to our final question of the forum, and it will be by J. Curtis Huckleberry, News Director from Williams Broadcasting, and will be directed to Sean Jackson. And then, Sean, we will come back to you after we go through this cycle of answers for concluding statements of 2 minutes each. So, Kurt?
Gentlemen, if you have yet to have the opportunity to do it, would like to provide you the chance to share with us, what do you believe to be the top or the top 2, say, most pressing issues facing the Sheriff's Department, and what is it that you would like to address?
The greatest issue facing this Sheriff's Office, which faces the majority of the Sheriff's offices, is limited funding and jail overcrowding issues. Those always seem to be the nemesis of the department. For funding within our department, we rely strictly upon, grants to help get us by. We rely strictly upon those service fees to help get us through. So we learn to function within our means. And that's the key with any sheriff's department, and it's across the nation, is being able to function within your means without, blowing it out of proportion and adding to things that you cannot substantiate. Being able to provide the amount of services that we do now, currently, and also be able to function within those means. But the greatest issues is always, limited resources, limited funding, and jail issues, jail overcrowding.
And the response of Jerry Niles.
Again, funding and the jail. To talk a little bit about the funding. Funding also is not only at the county level, it's the state and federal level. One of the candidates brought up the fact that they're going to actively go out and seek grant funding. Grant monies at the federal level has dried up. In the year 1999, the year 2000, we received $110,000 in federal grant money. This past month, we received federal grant monies from the same system for $6,100 for the year. Grant monies are drying up because of our deficit, our federal deficit. The state of Oklahoma does not offer any grant funding. There are some private and nonprofit, some corporate fundings. Most of those are just a couple of $1,000 apiece. They're nothing that you can fund personnel with or anything of that nature. So funding, that's the funding issue. We're gonna have to look at that at the state level as far as how we fund. Jail is we've talked many times about. It's we're not going to have less prisoners. We're probably going to have more. When we did this study, when Stephen Jones started the federal lawsuit, and we brought the NIJ in, and those studies there, we did those studies. We're growing at 6% a year. It was consistent then. It's still consistent today, 14 years later. We're still growing at 14%. 6% increase in population on an annual basis. So the jail is going to be an issue that we'll need to address in 2017.
And the answer of Rick West.
Jail overcrowding would be number one, and then financial issues related to the operations of the Sheriff's Department, number two, in my opinion. Currently, as I said earlier, that the Sheriff's Department is holding between 78 and 80 inmates awaiting transportation to the Department of Corrections. They're receiving $27 a day in regards to holding those prisoners, but they're relying upon that maintenance and that money for maintenance and operations. So it's kind of a catch-22. You can't get rid of the prisoners if you're relying upon the money to be able to house or to operate the facility. The first step would be and it probably solves both issues, is to obtain the appropriate funding necessary to operate the detention facility, and hopefully have a little left over to operate the Sheriff's Department itself. I admire these guys. They have worked, I sat in a department of $7.8 million budget, and after the passage of the public safety sales tax from the support of the community, it changed the entire aspect of the operations of the Sheriff's Department. It's just sad to say that the Sheriff's Department hasn't been able to share in that luxury. Times are tough now. It may be that ship has sailed. I don't know, but I will promise you, based upon what my research has shown, that these people have done everything they can to operate their facility at the squeezing every bit of the blood out of the rock they can get.
Final response from George Dillman.
I think the biggest problem here that I see within Garfield County, when I talk to people, and I've talked to literally thousands of people thus far on the campaign trail, and your number one concern here is you want to see a change of focus, because there are people you realize that are disenfranchised with law enforcement, and that's a shame. When one person feels disenfranchised, that leads to no hope. I want to do a team approach, and ladies and gentlemen, you can't have it one way without the other. I'm the only candidate calling to solidify a position within the Garfield County Sheriff's Office that will be a grant writing position solely for the exploitation and research of private, state, and federal funding. Now, Jerry Niles says there is no funding available. I assure you, there's millions of dollars waiting to be had. How do I know this? Because I've been researching the Hunter situation because I tried to look for money, grant funding. The problem with it is that you have to jump through hoops so much that the gain that you receive on some of those issues is not worth the final bill that you tally. So, ladies and gentlemen, if I have a person whose sole purpose is strictly to exercise his prudence or her prudence on grant funding, ladies and gentlemen, I assure you, we can take care of some of those issues that face Garfield County. You see, I want to bring everybody into the fold. I want to talk to the town council. I want to talk to the fire department personnel in those rural fire settings. I want to bring them as part of the reserve deputy program to help enhance law enforcement across this great county of ours. Thank you.
It's the Garfield County Sheriff's Candidates Forum here on PEGASYS Channel 11 and KGWA AM 960. We'll now move to concluding statements for the evening, and we'll first go to Sean Jackson. Each statement, gentlemen, if you would keep it to around 2 minutes. Sean?
Oh, 2 minutes, boy, that one's a quick one. I just wish we had more time to really talk about our candidacies. I mean, we're doing this in such a very, very short amount of time. You know, bottom line, win or lose, I am 100% proud of our department, and I'm proud of what we have done and what we have achieved over time. As I said before, not one man has been responsible for the development of our agency. I mean, every individual has led to the success and development of this department and has brought it to where it is now. But I also believe if elected coming into to office that we can't remain stagnant either. I can't, you know, rely on my predecessors to just take and leave it as what they had developed and leave it at that. I believe you have to have a plan coming in. I believe you need to be able to prioritize the services that we have. I believe that you have to be able to function within what limited resources you have to better serve and meet the needs of our community. If elected, I will prioritize those services. I will be innovative and proactive. I have a great compassion for my community and for my department. And if elected sheriff, I feel I will do the best services possible to maintain your trust. And I'm asking for your vote and your support come June 26th. Thank you.
Next closing statement from Jerry Niles.
Again, thank you, men and women, for the opportunity for us to speak. I'm going to start off with a quote from Ronald Reagan. He said, "Government's first duty is to protect the people, not run their lives." The Garfield County Sheriff's Office is made up of men and women dedicated to public safety. We are running, as you all well know, we're running on a tight budget. We cannot put a police officer in every school as much as we'd love to. We're a constitutional office that's mandated with many duties and responsibilities. We're officers of the courts. We run 7 courtrooms throughout every weekday. We're mandated to run a jail that takes people inside and outside the jail, that transports inmates to and from court and across this state of ours. We have many functions. I'm very proud of the men and women that have done those. We're a crime-fighting team that I would put up against any other law enforcement agency in our nation. I'm asking for your support, most humbly, and your vote on June 26th. Thank you.
Now the concluding remarks from Rick West.
Ladies and gentlemen, I spoke earlier in regards to my belief that government should be transparent, and that is obviously an issue that I will bring to the table in regards to the operations of the Sheriff's Department. As Sheriff, my primary focus will be to build trust and confidence in our citizens through competent, thorough, and effective law enforcement. In order to build a professional department in which the citizens have trust and confidence, it's necessary to build the Sheriff's Office on a solid foundation of rock-solid principles. These principles include leadership, professionalism, and integrity. Remember, as I said earlier, the Sheriff's Office belongs to the citizens of Garfield County. It is your Sheriff's Office, and he, the Sheriff, works for you. Your Sheriff should have an overwhelming desire to protect the public and to serve citizens competently and professionally. He should be an experienced law leader with integrity and must possess knowledge of the laws and the ability to properly investigate crimes. As Sheriff, I will set the example for the employees of the Sheriff's Office, teaching that we are accountable to every citizen and are responsible for fulfilling our duties in the utmost professional, thorough, and efficient manner possible. I feel I can make a positive difference within the Sheriff's Department, and I would ask that you support me on June 26th and vote Rick West. Thank you.
And the final statement from George Dillman.
Ladies and gentlemen, in my closing remarks, I want you to remember what happened in 2000. I'm the only candidate up here that provided the necessary leadership to put the train back on track. I did nearly 100 hours of research from the National Institute of Corrections, which allowed them to come in and conduct a feasibility study of our jail. This is laid the foundation for our present jail. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the only candidate authoring No Community Left Behind. This user-friendly and totally volunteer program will help lift the bureaucratic burden from the faculty and school administrators alike, while empowering young students to make better decisions in the absence of any real authority. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring that to the table, and I've already pitched my plan to every rural school superintendent. You see, I want a fresh approach, ladies and gentlemen. That is so important to me. I'm going to work effectively with each town council, who works effectively with each rural fire department. Now, you've noticed here that they've said a lot of nice things, but I'm the only candidate up here telling you what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. And that's really, really important, because with No Community Left Behind, I'm telling you what I'm going to do. The institution or the implementation of a grant writing position, I believe, will fund at some time, and it's a long-term goal, of a school resource officer available to every rural school superintendent. I'm not saying that it's going to happen tomorrow, but I am going to say that that is a long-term goal that I hope to achieve. Ladies and gentlemen, keep this in mind, and this is really, once the words got out on this, it's just unbelievable. I am the only candidate willing to take a $500 a month cut in pay, and I want you to think about that, because that's going to go to a agency within Garfield County that works with our children, and I think that's just so very important. You have to give back to your community. Over a 4-year period of time, that's $24,000, ladies and gentlemen. In 2-year period of time, that's $48,000. If you hire me for a third term, that'll be close to $100,000 I've been given back. Vote George Dillman for sheriff this June 26th, and I assure you, you will not be disappointed. Thank you.
Our candidates for Garfield County Sheriff, George Dillman, Sean Jackson, Jerry Niles, and Rick West, please join me in showing our appreciation for their willingness to serve. We want to thank you so much for joining us this evening, whether you've been watching on PEGASYS Channel 11 or listening on KHWA AM 960. PEGASYS will be showing this forum innumerable times between now and the primary on June 26. The dates start June 14th at 1 p.m., June 16th at 5, and for the rest of the dates and times, you can go to the PEGASYS website, www.pegasys.org. Also, enidnews.com will be making arrangements on their website to show this campaign forum in its entirety. And of course, all of these great news organizations will have superb coverage tomorrow on this event. Thanks to our host, the City of Enid, for providing the commission chambers, and our primary sponsors, the Enid News and Eagle, PEGASYS, Williams Broadcasting, and Chisholm Trail Broadcasting. Our thanks to our candidates, and thank you for both watching and listening. I'm Frank Baker. Thank you.
Hey, how about a round of applause?